Welcome to the launch of the Virtual Hub for Preventing Violence Against Children in East Africa. My name is Tera Samayotaya, and I'm the Head of Programs at Impact and Innovations Development Center, and I will be your moderator for this event. I know that we are all gathered here in the spirit of making contributions towards improving the well-being of children in East Africa, and I pray that the Lord grants us wisdom so that we can have fruitful conversations during this 2 hours meeting. Before we start the conversations, I would like to share a few words just to bring the meeting into context. You may all agree with me that when I say that knowing what works and not sharing information with others is as good as witnessing violence and not taking action. I hope many of you agree with me on that. We are therefore here to inspire one another to share evidence on what works in preventing violence against children in East Africa, as well as make use of that evidence, because it's not enough to share and not make use of the evidence. This meeting is going to be attended by over 600 participants coming from over 25 countries. This pronounced participation is a demonstration of the great enthusiasm that you have regarding reducing violence against children to zero. We don't underrate this. We thank you very much for registering in numbers, and we can see many of you are joining in and many more are still joining in. It is truly by design that we are having this meeting virtually, because we don't think there would be a better way to launch a virtual hub than holding the event virtually. And your participation in this hub in numbers gives us confidence that we are on the right track towards preventing violence against children. And you believe in this hub, and we know it will definitely create impact. We pray that the hub will add value to the sector of child protection. And we are ready to see good use of this hub, because we believe that every intervention matters. We call out every actor wherever you are to share your evidence for others to learn from what is working. I would like to take us through the methodology briefly, and also the agenda of today. We will have several remarks from different speakers. We will have one keynote address. We will have a panel discussion. We will have one PowerPoint presentation and 4 statements that would lead us to the launch of the hub. We kindly request you to listen in when every speaker is sharing, and write your comments or questions in the chat. At the top of our first hour, we will be able to respond to some or all the questions that we'll have received. So please take note that we'll have up to 20 minutes to respond to comments, questions, or any reactions. But just a humble request that you put your comments and questions in the chat. Make use of the chat. We are watching, and we will be able to react and respond to them. At this moment, allow me to introduce our first speaker, who will give us welcoming remarks. And this is none other than Professor Paul Bukuluchi. Professor Paul Bukuluchi is an associate professor at Makerere University. He is a board member of Impact and Innovations Development Center, and also a member of the reference group. Professor Bukuluchi has authored and co-authored very many publications on sexual and reproductive health, family planning, gender-based violence, and violence against children. He's an executive member of the Global Social Norms Collaborative, a member of the West Africa, that is the Nigeria Learning Collaboration on Social Norms, and the East Africa Learning Collaborative on Social and Gender Norms. He has worked as a principal investigator and a consultant for several multilateral and bilateral agencies. Please join me to invite Professor Bukulchi to give the welcome remarks on behalf of Impact and Innovations Development Center.
Thank you very much, moderator. All protocol observed, but I will still mention a few people. The Director Pathfinder Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children, Mrs. Stella Ayo-Odong, representatives from the governments of Kenya and Uganda, and for Kenya, Mr. Morris Suma, Director Child Protection Services, and for Uganda, Mr. John Mugisha, the Senior Probation and Welfare Officer, the Executive Director, Impact and Innovations Development Center, Mr. Deo Yiga, the Executive Director, Children Rights and Violence Prevention Fund, Mr. Fasilu Mariam, the representative of the World Health Organization Africa, WHO Afro, Mrs. Musabimana, the representatives of the African Union Commission, Mrs. Theopista Chazaire, and the Lofoko Kasmanga. The representative of the Africa Child Policy Forum, Mr. Reta Getachew, members of the VaCNets Reference Group, ladies and gentlemen, a peaceful day to all of you, and peace be with all of you. On behalf of the Impact and Innovations Development Center, where I'm a board member and chairman for the VaCNets Reference Group, I welcome you all to the occasion of launching the Violence Against Children East Africa Virtual Hub. I salute each and every one of you for attending this very significant event. And I say significant event because this is an event which is emphasizing evidence-based programming and being able to showcase what works. Because at the end of the day, we want to be impactful in terms of what we do to improve the well-being, the health and well-being of children, to make the world safer for children. We need evidence-based programming, not any programming. And to our partners and funders, especially the Children Rights and Violence Prevention Fund, who gave us the seed funding for establishing this hub. Thank you very much. This is really very much appreciated. I have to say that this is coming at the right time because we have gone virtual, we have gone online, and now we would like to maximize this opportunity of launching this hub to make sure that we use the available technology to share and showcase what works in terms of prevention of violence against children. I want particularly to underscore the fact that the VaCNets Virtual Hub is one of the IIDC's knowledge management initiatives, enabling actors to document, share, access, and use information on what works in preventing violence against children in East Africa, and of course beyond East Africa. Because when you go virtual, it means you are going global. So East Africa is the initial focus, but the ambition is actually to go global. As we launch this hub, the listening skills of IIDC as managers of VaCNets Virtual Hub will put us to test as we provide space and opportunity for wider participation and dialogue on what works in preventing violence against children in East Africa and beyond. Again, I would like to reiterate, as the IIDC representative, I would like to reiterate that the commitment of IIDC to do whatever is in our power, whatever is in our ability to ensure that the virtual platform for sharing and learning about VAC prevention is a huge success in the region. Thank you very much, and we look forward to a productive and successful launch. And thank you so much for your collaboration. You are all welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Bukuluchi. Indeed, we are challenged to work more virtually. We are challenged to share evidence. We are challenged to collaborate and learn from one another. I can't say more than what you have emphasized, but you have set us very well into this conversation. And I think it is very clear to everyone why we are gathering here today. Now, allow me to invite our next speakers, and that is the Government of Uganda representatives. We are going to have remarks from the Government of Kenya, and these remarks will be given to us by Mr. Maurice Suma, the Director of Child Protection Services. Mr. Maurice Suma, you're welcome to address the congregation.
Good morning, delegates. My name is Mwambi Mungara, representing the Director for Child Services, Mr. Maurice Suma, and I'm representing the Kenyan government in this meeting. Madam Stella Ayodongo, and FAC Pathfinder Director, Professor Paul Pukuruki, Board Member, IIDC, Chairperson, Hub Reference Center, the President of the Government of Tanzania, the President of the Government of Uganda, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to join you during this launch of VaCNets Virtual Hub, with the sole purpose of bringing together the East African countries, as Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya, to have a central repository of evidence-based approaches on ending violence against children. The Directorate of Children's Services, under the Ministry of Public Service, Gender, Senior Citizen Affairs, and Special Programs, is the lead agency in safeguarding of the welfare and rights of the child from all forms of violence, abuse, exploitation, and neglect as stipulated in the Children's Act of 2001, Laws of Kenya, to implement its activities. The Directorate works through a multi-sectoral approach with the state and non-state actors work geared towards eliminating violence against children in our country and even in our region. Ladies and gentlemen, as you are aware, violence against children is a global human rights violation that spans every country worldwide and affects millions of children in relation to their health, survival, and development in sub-Saharan Africa. Scientific research on the prevalence and incidences of violence and exploitation of children, adolescents, and young adults is still in its initial stages in most countries, where Kenya is included. Nonetheless, we welcome any efforts to collect and share information on evidence-based approaches on ending violence against children in the region, in whatever form, as this will help the child protection experts plan for effective programming and resource allocation to control violence against children. The government of Kenya conducted the first violence against children survey in 2010, which was followed up by a plan on how to respond on the same. Subsequently, the second violence against children survey was conducted in the year 2019, those are about 3 years ago, to review the milestones in implementing the National Response Plan on Violence Against Children of 2013-2018. The fact survey of 2019 shows a remarkable reduction in our country in childhood physical violence for both female and male children, and who are youth and adolescents, and the reduction in childhood sexual violence for females was witnessed. Emotional violence perpetrated by parents, caregivers, and adult relatives also decreased within that period. The report, however, highlighted trends which showed increase in physical and sexual violence among the adolescents girls. The FACT survey of 2019 formed the basis of developing an evidence-based national prevention and response plan on violence against children 2019-2023. The first plan was on response alone, but the second plan as a country we have developed is geared towards prevention and then we respond, which has this plan has 6 strategic areas, which are roles and policies, parenting skills, education and life skills, community intervention, addressing norms and values, response and support services, and the coordination using the INSPIRE framework, which helped in designing a public behavior change campaign on violence against children in our country, which we have adopted, Spot It, Stop It, which was launched in July 2020 during the pandemic period. The campaign aims at creating awareness from the national to the grassroots levels on violence, method against children, and how we can stop it. This is one of the evidence-based best practice that we may showcase on how Kenya is doing in ending violence against children in our nation, and we can extend it to the region, the East African community. In VaCNets Hub, that is being launched today. We can showcase even EDB. Ladies and gentlemen, as we launch the VaCNets Hub, research has shown that the issue of ending violence against children cannot be addressed in isolation. People cannot work in silos or their pigeonholes so that they can end this violence. We need to work together through a multi-sectoral approach to protect our children. And it is our collective responsibility to protect children, to create safe, protective, and nurturing environments where our children have the opportunity to live their lives to the fullest potential. May God bless Kenya, East Africa, and African children. Thank you to the facilitator. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wambi, for representing the government of Kenya and delivering that powerful message. Yeah, indeed, we acknowledge that research in the region is still at initial stages, but we also appreciate the Kenyan government approach of working with several sectors. Thank you very much. We acknowledge that, and we really appreciate the fact that there is a great recognition that evidence-based programming is needed to effectively program and prevent violence against children. At this moment now, I would like to invite the representative from the government of Uganda, Mr. Maurice Mugisha, Mr. John Mugisha, to give us remarks on behalf of the government of Uganda. Mr. John Mugisha, please talk to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Samali, and good morning to everyone that's on call. All protocols observed. It's an excitement day, and I don't want to be the person that puts it down in the sense that I don't give it justice that it deserves. That said, I would want to begin by first appreciating my counterparts from the different countries, that is Tanzania and Kenya. First of all, for accepting to be part of the VaCNets Virtual Hub. Technology has come a long way, and most times we fear technology, but technology has advantages. Therefore, that said, like one scholar said, that knowledge is power. And therefore, the hub will give us an opportunity to engage beyond our borders and be able to take what has worked and what has not worked into consideration. The VaCNets Virtual Hub will provide us with an opportunity to build networks and to also collaborate beyond the conversations that we have, but to see the practicability of what can work within our countries. We have had discussions where in different countries, you find that certain things are not determined as a form of abuse. But I think the hub will give us that bit of background and research to actually appreciate that there's a lot that is being done by the different countries to actually be able to protect the children of East Africa. And as Uganda, we are proud to be part of this launch today. And we want to give our commitment that we shall actively participate, sharing with our counterparts, both government and non-government that are within East Africa, what we are doing. We are proud to say that to address violence, like my counterpart from Kenya said, we need each other. And it's very important for us to understand that the children of East Africa are not waiting for us to continue with our discussions without actually having practical solutions to the things that are affecting them, causing the violence. So we need to be able to use the hub, not as a form of representation, but as an avenue for us to have high-level discussions that will actually have an impact and make East Africa safe for the children. We want to build bridges as Uganda with our counterparts and also be able to remove the barriers that have actually affected us across the board in regards to helping the children that fall through the cracks. We want to continue urging each and everyone that's on call. That is one thing to say that we shall participate, but it's another to actually do it. So the virtual hub gives us no excuse because we are able, at the comfort of our offices, to be able to contribute all that we are doing. From the data that we are collecting across different interventions that government and non-government within our states are actually running, and I know across East Africa we have the 116, and I know all the countries have this helpline, and therefore data will be shared across board. And finally, from our side, we want to commit everything to God because we're a nation that believes with God everything is possible. We want to echo that if we put God at the center, we shall be able to push and be able to see this hub live beyond even the expectations of those who are the initiators. So allow me to appreciate all those that have contributed to the design, all those who have taken time to push efforts to see that this day becomes a reality. With those few words, I would like to say for God and my country, and may East Africa shine brighter than it has been shining. Thank you very much. Back to you, Samali.
Thank you very much, Mr. John Mugisha. This is very much appreciated. I really appreciate the fact that you bring it out very well, that technology has advantages and we can work from the comfort of our offices and be able to create change. You really call out everyone to have an appreciation that knowledge is power, and it can only be powerful if it is shared. Otherwise, if it is residing in a single institution, perhaps it is not going to be as powerful as it should be. I would like to bring our sincere apologies from the government of Tanzania that due to unforeseen circumstances, the representative of the Tanzanian government is not able to join us this morning, but they are committed and together with us in this journey that we are starting. Next, we are going to have our keynote address from Mrs. Stella Ayo Odong, the Director, Pathfinding Countries at the Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children. She has expertise in child rights, child protection, social policy expertise, and advocacy for social justice. Stella is a motivated leader and development practitioner with over 20 years of progressive experience in strategic leadership, development, management, and program operations. She has extensive knowledge and experience advocating for vulnerable groups such as children, youth, and the elderly. She is a visionary Pan-African leader, and she has founded several national and regional level movements for social justice, such as the Africa-wide Movement for the Children, the Civil Society Organization for Peace in Northern Uganda, and the Uganda Parliamentary Forum for Children. all of which are contributing greatly to reducing violence against children. This is Stella Ayo Ojong. You're welcome to address us.
Thank you, moderator, for that warm introductions. Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're joining from, good evening if it is already evening for you. It's a pleasure to join you this morning as we launch the Virtual Hub, and from the Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children, and on my own behalf, I'd like to greatly appreciate you for extending us this invitation, but above all, congratulate you upon this big milestone. And we are also proud to be part of this landmark journey that as a community we are making today. Allow me to start by just giving the general statistics that we all know. Already over the world, we've been talking about more than 1 billion children experience violence on a daily basis. And many are at risk of violence or experiencing violence. And the numbers are staggering. A lot is being done. But the comfort is that while all this is happening, we are also working together, and it calls for collective action for us to be able to address all these vices that are causing our children to experience violence. Allow me also talk about where we have come from. Although the future, the situation is bleak in terms of the numbers that we are looking at, evidence shows that violence against children can be prevented, and it requires smart interventions or smart investments. And one of the key areas that will help us to prevent violence against children is to build a movement. The Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children is this one such movement that brings together several stakeholders to deliberate on the agenda to end violence against children, but also chart a vision on how collectively we can work on violence against children. I want to appreciate the interventions by the government of Kenya and the government of Uganda that have brought to life the actual experiences in those countries, the evidence. The representative of the government of Kenya talked about the development, the national surveys on violence against children, and the fact that from the national survey it was translated into a national plan of action. This is a clear demonstration on how we move from evidence to programming, and the program that the National Prevention and Response Plan that Kenya has now been posted and is an example of how we can translate evidence into practice. I also want to appreciate the intervention by the government of Uganda, and specifically mentioning the national child helplines and the fact and the role of technology in facilitating programming on violence against children. Just to add that beyond technology, I think beyond technology contributing to programming, I think technology and the child helpline is one example of how we can get real-time evidence to inform our programming. We'll get it on a daily basis, and I want to congratulate all these governments, even the government of Tanzania in absentia. So together with stakeholders, the governments are moving, the other stakeholders are moving together, and we have also succeeded in getting more than 37 countries make global commitments to take leadership in ending violence against children. Out of the 37 countries that we have globally who have signed up to become pathfinding countries, to which Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania are fortunately part of the pathfinding movement, we have seen all these pathfinding countries develop national plans of action. Out of the 37, at least 24 of these countries have their national plans of action informed by the evidence-based package of INSPIRE and the Violence Against Children National Survey. So we are in effect stepping in the right direction, and IIDC, congratulations upon this. In my career of I am hesitant to say the years, but let me say it. In my career of about 20 years, I have seen ending violence against children community make significant progress. We have moved from where there was doubt about what we were doing to whether we were actually serious about child protection, or whether it was actually evident, or it was just us playing on people's emotions, to a point where the community, the stakeholders are now acknowledging that it is actually a problem. And I have also seen that there is a growing body of evidence of what works. We have identified solutions. We even know better ways of implementing those solutions, but still with the solutions in place, and even having the knowledge about how to implement the solution, there is still a gap. The gap between the solutions and the implementation still exists. I like to use the phrase and the expression that many of you who have traveled could have heard when you're taking a train, especially in Europe and even South Africa. There's always that person that keeps talking, mind the gap between the platform and the train so that you don't fall through. Many a time we don't mind the gap between the solutions and implementation, and the gap there is usually the funding. And so for us to be able to translate solutions into implementation that will realize results for children or for violence prevention, we need to mind that gap, fill that gap, and the gap requires resources, requires investment. So we need to be very cautious about that. Again, the journey that we have made throughout the years, and I'm happy to have been part of it, has been reached by learning, gaining successes, losing some, failing in some areas, making mistakes, sharing lessons, both at national, regional, and global level. All these have contributed to what we now see and what we are able to speak about and talk about. A number of times we've been asked the question, why must policy and implementation be evidence-based? And I'll pose this question to all of us on this platform. Why must policy and implementation be evidence-based? And I'll share the reasons why violence prevention and response work must be informed by evidence. And like I mentioned earlier, these reflections again are informed by my personal experiences and also learning from insights and reflections from various experts, including those of you who are on this call today. And all these have been garnered through defining processes that have led us to implementing and scaling up strategies, especially the INSPIRE strategies. I've had the benefit of having the hands-on experience of developing INSPIRE, going through the training, going through the implementation of INSPIRE packages and building capacity of stakeholders, but also using the INSPIRE strategies to inform planning and programming. And the INSPIRE technical package with the 7 strategies have actually shown that that violence against children can be prevented and can be eliminated. But coming back to the gist of the presentation and the gist of the discussion, what are the pitfalls and reasons for why this violence prevention work or evidence-based work cannot result into actualization of violence elimination? One key area that I want to focus on, one key pitfall rather, is the harm, unintentional harm that happens. So the point that I want to make surrounds do no harm. The do no harm philosophy has been around us for so many years, especially within the humanitarian sector. But I want to bring it closer to us, for us who are working in child protection, that it is important that we, in all the interventions that we undertake, we don't create more harm or to the survivors or subject survivors to what is now described as secondary abuse. By one, not having all the services, for example, in one location. I like the sharing by Mr. Mugisha about the child helpline. we need also to think about the one-stop center where a child does not have to tell their story many times. In that way, the survivors of violence are protected from secondary abuse. So that is one. You may have good intentions, but many a times unintended, we result into causing unintended and adverse effect on children and the communities if we do not pay attention to that. So once we have a program that is going on, it's important that we go through a process of systematic design, piloting this, validating the intervention before we can scale up and roll them out to the community or to the children. I'll just give an example. Another example, for example, promoting referral to health services for child survivors of sexual assault is important intervention. However, if this child survivor arrives at the service center and the services are inappropriately delivered, you may end up causing more harm. So if we know of situations where intended livelihood enhancement programs have resulted into children dropping out of school and ending up in child labor. So we need to use evidence-based approaches to help us identify and respond to these risks in a timely manner and mitigate them if you wish. The second pitfall is about appropriate investments, or putting it simply, not wasting resources of funding in things, in areas or interventions that do not work. Many a times practitioners rely on intuition. What feels right? Many a times have been driven by what feels right. This can be both costly and ineffective. For example, if we just imagine rolling out a life skills program in a school because practitioners think that and feel that it is right, it may actually turn out to be counterproductive to the children. If there has been no evaluation on this or such a program, or assessing whether it actually makes a difference in terms of changing knowledge, attitudes, and practices to prevent violence against children, it's better not to try it. We'd rather have them tested, invest in testing, and ensuring that these tested programs can then be translated for implementation. It makes sense to use the resources in a more optimal way by applying them to tested solutions as opposed to those that are not tested. Sorry. The third aspect is building on what works. There's a lot of evidence. There's a lot of what has worked. There's a lot of homegrown solutions. And I'm glad to see my colleague Reta Getachew on the call. As the African Child Policy at the African Child Policy Forum, a lot of studies have been carried out. They recently, I think in 2021, they did launch a report on homegrown solutions on violence against children, making that works. So there's a lot of information, there's a lot of resources, a lot of evidence out there. We have the Inspire strategies out there. So it's important to build on components and programs that have already been successful, have already been tested, and they've already shown promising results. But we also have to be cautious that once it is ready to be scaled up, it is going to be important for us to understand and assess which elements are essential for success. It's not that the entire package. For example, if you picked on a homegrown solution, say in Cote d'Ivoire, there could be elements that would work for Uganda or work for Kenya, work for Tanzania, but not the entire package. So adopting and adaptation is very, very important. So building on what works, but building on what is context relevant and context specific is also important. The fourth area is prioritizing where to invest. I think this is a point that has been over debated and talked about. We talk prioritization, but when it comes to implementation, many a time we are driven either by the donor, and apologies to Mr. Faisal Mariam, I'm not meaning any harm, but at times a lot of the interventions are driven by where the money is coming from and not where the priority is. So you find that a lot of the thinking is skewed. But I want to caution us that because there are limited resources, as it was highlighted above, I think it's, and there's an ever-growing demand on the area of prevention and response. There's always need for organizations to make choices. Informed choices, or governments also to make informed choices that will not be detrimental to the community, detrimental to the country, but beneficial, and prioritizing what actually works or what would make significant impact in implementing the evidence-based solution. And I'll move to a quick reflection of what evidence is. What is evidence? It can be a powerful tool for influencing change. It is one of the key features of effective policy making and implementation. Evidence-based decision-making processes integrate three components. One, best available research evidence, that for us to be able to stand and talk about evidence-based policy making, evidence-based implementation, evidence-based decision-making. We need to, one, have the best available research that has been well carried out, not a rapid assessment, but an in-depth study that gives the evidence that we need. The second one is practitioner expertise and other available resources. We don't just only depend on, evidence cannot only be generated from research, but practitioner experiences. We have work that we have done, we have implementations that we have tried out and worked, and other resources that we have accumulated, as I shared earlier. Then the third is the characteristics and needs, values, and preferences of those who will be affected by the intervention. For us to be able to talk about this confidently, we need to look at the needs, the characteristics, and preferences for the target group. It's important to have the target group in view whenever we are talking about any evidence. Beyond the target group, we also need to have in mind the countries, specific, context-specific decisions, especially when you're looking at policy evidence for policy implementation. It is vital that policymakers and planners and practitioners have the knowledge, skills, and resources they need to generate useful evidence that I'm just raising for emphasis, and that they use that to inform their programming and to base their programs and policies on evidence. One thing that we don't have to lose sight of or keep our eyes on is the fact that we should not forget that meeting the rights of children is a universal obligation. States have made commitments, and the fact about ending violence against children is also a global commitment that was made under the Sustainable Development Goals, where countries came together and made a decision to end all forms of violence against children contained in Target 16.2 and other related targets. And therefore, if they have the obligations that they made and commitments they made, they are also obligated to ensure that the children and the goals that they made commitments towards are implemented to the latter. Strengthening data is one of those commitments that was made in the Sustainable Development Goals and is a critical element of the SDGs. As a global community, we must collect, utilize, and share learnings from INSPIRE package of solutions. We recently just concluded an assessment of the benefits of INSPIRE, and the report will be commissioned very soon. It shows that evidence-based implementation of INSPIRE has actually worked and has caused change and has caused transformation in many, many parts of the world, and has contributed to the reduction in violence against children, in some instances preventing violence against children. And so because it's backed by evidence, ending violence against children is possible. As I conclude, in order to address the significant evidence pitfalls that we confront in VaC programming, we as policymakers, programmers, advocates, practitioners have to commit to investing in several areas that are relevant, and key amongst them is one, we need to invest in data collection, management, and analysis on VAC prevention, both through household surveys, administrative data, and other various stages, or at all various stages of policy program development and implementation. This has to be a progressive undertaking. It should not just be an event. When you're ready to develop a proposal, then you begin to look for the evidence. It has to be something that is done on a daily. As I already mentioned earlier, thankfully many countries have the VAC surveys, and we also have other administrative data in country, also have UNICEF data that is readily available. We need to exploit that, but also look out for any other available or upcoming information. The second one is we need to invest in better linkages between the different stakeholders, the academia, that includes universities, the practitioners, the policymakers, to undertake solid research in violence against children programming. I want to mention that the Evaluation Fund has provided useful insights into the efficacy of this approach, and we can just draw a leaf from that. Finally, investing in global, regional, and national repositories of evidence-based solutions that will feed, inspire. The End Violence community has the Knowledge Hub that has now been transitioned to Edinburgh. It's operational. It started doing this. It has not really realized the vision for which it was established, but we're hopeful that we're getting there. The VaCNet is one regional hub that we look forward to, and we're very, very hopeful that it has a big potential to make this contribution, and any other that I may not have talked about. The VaCNet Hub is therefore very timely and valuable regional initiative that has the potential to build the necessary momentum for evidence-based policy and practice in programming. We at the Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children are happy to be associated with this initiative in East Africa and pledge our unwavering support to this end. We also want to add that VaCNets Hub can actually be a model that we need to look at scaling up and scaling out. We are currently promoting scaling up evidence-based solutions to end violence against children, and the VaCNets Hub is a solution to compiling evidence that will inform programming. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Stella Ayo-Odong, for that keynote address. We really appreciate how you have enabled all of us to have a good understanding of how this VaCNets Hub in East Africa is connecting to the global initiatives. We really appreciate, and it was lovely for us to know that to date, up to 37 countries have signed up as Inspire and countries that are committed to end violence against children, and they are Pathfinder countries. We appreciate the fact that there was a survey that was made, and it was proved that evidence-based implementation strategies under Inspire are creating change. This is very, very motivating, and it makes us feel that we are on the right track. Thanks for your guidance on what we should do or not as we work and use our resources to prevent violence against children. Just for me to highlight that you want us to pay more attention on not doing harm. We should not waste resources. We should build on what works, and we should prioritize where to invest. And we believe that with such an initiative that showcases and creates a platform where people can find what is working, all this can be taken care of, because this is the real purpose and intention of this initiative, exposing actors to what is working so that mistakes are not repeated, but what is working is instead scaled up. I don't want to go so much into detailed retaliation of your conversation, because next on our agenda, we are going to have a panel discussion by two senior officials in the sector. And the first one will be, I'm going to present both of them at a go, and then I would later invite one of them to start, and then the other will also be able to share their perspectives regarding the keynote address. Allow me to first introduce to you Dr. Lina Digolo, an epidemiologist and public health specialist with over 15 years experience in program development, implementation, evaluation, and policy development. Dr. Lina is particularly interested in practical links between research, evidence, and practice. And this excites me so much because, yes, I feel that, yes, we have the right person to comment about this keynote address. And Dr. Lina has vast expertise in supporting national government, civil society organizations, bilateral and philanthropic donors, UN agencies to use evidence for policy making and program design in the Global South. She is currently focusing on work around violence against women and children and supporting actors to use evidence to design programs that work in the intersection. I would like now to also introduce to you the second panelist, Dr. Samuel Likindikoki. Dr. Samuel, I didn't mention that Dr. Lina is based in Kenya and Dr. Samuel is based in Tanzania. Dr. Samuel is a lecturer and a medical specialist. So we are having two doctors because even Dr. Lina is a medic by practice, but all focusing on working and preventing violence against children. So Dr. Samuel is working at the Muhimbi University of Health Science, and he's serving as the commissioner in the last St. Nick Commission on Gender-Based Violence and Maltreatment of Young People. And he's a reference group member for the VaCNets. He coordinates the Tanzania Violence Research Network and has consulted with government, UN, and other international agencies on women, child protection, and vulnerable populations. He has over 15 years work experience on research, program, training, mentorship, on issues related to health and violence interventions across the lifespan. I now want to invite Dr. Lina Digolo to first share her perspectives about the keynote address and the message we have just heard from Mrs. Stella Ayo Odong. So Dr. Lina, what comes to your mind when you hear this global situation and the message that Mrs. Stella Ayo has given us regarding evidence?
She is muted.
Dr. Lina, you're still mute.
Sorry about that. That's my daily struggle. Thank you so much, Emily, and to the IIDC team for this opportunity to come and just speak and just get the honor of speaking and after my senior colleague, Stella, Director, Pathfinder, Global Partnerships to End Violence Against Children. Let me start by just appreciating our honorable guests, representatives from the government of Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya, all protocols observed. I have the hard task of reflecting on what we just heard from Stella. I think she gave quite a comprehensive overview of the situation in the region and where we are in regard to ending violence against children. And just to, I think the things that the part of the speech that really struck me hard is, and what I have experienced as I work within the region, is just the question around what constitutes evidence. And this, I think, is going to be very important as we start thinking about putting our evidence together in a platform like what we have put, a good opportunity that we are getting here from the VaCNets Hub. And a big question that people keep reflecting on. I think my thoughts around that is we have a lot of work that has been ongoing in the region, a lot of evidence that's coming out, but our definition of evidence has been quite narrowly limited to research evidence. This is not to say that research evidence is not important. We've had a lot of growth in impact evaluations that have really been valuable in giving us strong evidence that shows us the core drivers of VaC and the identifying effective programs, as we had from the keynote speech. And we now know that VaC we can prevent VaC. I think what I would like to really reflect on and to bring on the table is the other point that as Stella mentioned about practice-based knowledge. And I think this is where the rubber hits the road for us, because this is the knowledge that we have a lot, rich, innovative work ongoing in the 3 countries. We have, if you've gone to the field, you'll find that many programs are actually generating quite interesting findings. We have cumulative knowledge that's been acquired by practitioners through designing, implementing programs in different contexts, things they're observing, the conversations they're hearing, direct experience on the ground with the survivors. I think for me, the take-home message here is how do we package this information? How do we put our investments in being able to document this work, being able to elevate this work that we're doing as a region, so that the next time we're seeing Inspire 2.0, if that's going to be happening, we are seeing more of our evidence, local, contextually working innovations being elevated to a point where other people in other regions are working for us. So for me, that was a very strong take-home message from the keynote, and really starting to think about why we then place in our systems to generate this evidence, and why we must recognize evidence-based knowledge. And we had all the reasons why do no harm, put the limited resources in the right place. So I think just as a start point, that's my immediate reflection. Let's see how to elevate our practice-based knowledge and respect this as a source of evidence, because we have a lot of that in the region. And I'm hoping to see that really been coming out quite strongly as a form of evidence that we'll be seeing in this hub. Thank you, Samile.
Thank you to Dr. Lina. And now we will have Dr. Samuel sharing with us his perspectives about the keynote address.
Thank you so much. For the thank you so much, Stella, for such a wonderful keynote address. Actually, you've been able to cover most of pertinent issues that are very relevant for our countries in East Africa. So, and I think Lina has touched a little bit about some of the really important for us, such as policymakers and implementers need to reflect as we go on and do this really work to prevent violence against children. So one of the striking issues that came out from the keynote address is about the use of evidence generated from research, being it the national surveys, the VaCs, or small models that in actual sense has been really powerful when it comes to influencing policy and implementation work on the ground. And, for the past 2 decades, where we started to really struggle to see in what ways research can be helpful tool to mitigate violence in our region. We've seen that to be actually put in action and be able to understand if we're making progress or not. So earlier on, when we started with VAX, the Violence Against Children survey, the question was for us to understand the magnitude, the scope of the problem, the dynamics, why it happens, what are the risk and protective factors. But at this point in time, when we really know a lot about the magnitude and the determinant of violence, the focus now is shifting towards really having different models that have evidence to be implemented at different levels, and at most at the country level, and for us over time to see reduction or ending of violence against children. And I think this is where we really need to focus. And you know, like for Tanzania now, we have the experience of really harvesting on the violence against children survey results and inform us what is it that we need to do. But currently, we need to showcase and be able to say if what we do actually, you know, make impact at the national level, not just at different small programs, but really at the national level, for us to say, you know, for the past 10 years or for the past 5 years, we've been able to reduce violence by this extent. And that is what we really need to move forward. And I think that won't be able to happen unless the researching community is able to properly being linked by, you know, policymakers and programmers to make sure that that thing happen. Otherwise, what I've seen in my experience, researchers do work in silo. The research agenda, the research questions are not really speaking to what matters on the ground. And I think we really need to see in what ways, you know, moving forward, that can be one of the agenda for us to really link the research community into the mainstream programming and policy. And you know, when Lina started to really interrogate the question around what constitutes evidence, we oftentimes forget that we have bottom-up approach and, you know, top-bottom approach. And we need to harness the very knowledge that being generated from the community, not about really randomized control trials, but small best practices that they come out from program. And these are the things that they need to be well documented, because sometimes they won't really follow the scientific method and the protocol, but they can generate useful evidence. And there's where we can, you know, pick some of these promising best practices and say maybe we can model them at larger community and see if they're helpful. But moving forward, I think we need to believe, you know, people are different, the different stakeholders, they need to believe that violence is preventable. It is challenging, but it is preventable. And research is, you know, one important tool to really help us to realize that goal, because we need to feed in the programming and only worries if you are not keen in generation of variables. We can have like evidence generated today, and it takes a lot of time to go back to the community level, to the program level, to the policy level. So the turnaround time for research is not in keeping with turnaround when it comes to the utilization of the finding. And that needs to be one of the issues that we really need to be keen as we move forward. Maybe I should stop there, and if there are any other questions, I'll be happy to engage. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Samuel and Dr. Lina. Dear participants, I think we are 5 minutes into the next presentation, so we'll keep the panel discussion at that. And allow me to introduce our next presenter, who is going to tell us about the VaCNets Virtual Hub. And this is none other than Agnes Wasike, who is a social worker by profession and a development management profession with over 20 years practice supporting vulnerable populations, particularly children and family. Agnes has worked with non-government organizations as well as within government institutional frameworks, especially coordinating Uganda national actors on child protection towards a harmonized child protection system. Well done, Agnes. And actually, I'm sitting here in the room with her. Commendable job, Agnes. Well done. She has participated in East Africa Community Processes for Development of East Africa Child Policy, the one of 2006. And she is currently the Technical Advisor for Knowledge Management at Impact and Innovations Development Center, as well as the coordinator for VaCNets. Please welcome Agnes as she takes us through the virtual hub. Agnes, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I'm so happy to see so many people that have joined us online today. You must have received so many emails from me. And today I'm happy to be connecting with you as you listen to the overview that I'm going to share in very few minutes about what this hub is all about. On the screen, we have provided the outline of what I'm going to be sharing. And for starters, I would like to say that VaCNets is not an acronym. The way it is actually is a full name. It is just because it has something it communicates, and this is a communication about preventing violence against children and being a site that is going to be holding information, which is the net aspect, and the fact that that information is going to be held in safety. Held in safety in two perspectives. One, that whatever information shall be getting on the hub shall be information that is approved or endorsed by the organization that originates the information for it to be uploaded. And this information remains the property, or call it is copyright of the holding organization. So I'd like to add that it will also serve as a stakeholders connecting point, because while the information shall be held safely online, it will at one point be presented on a webinar, just like we are now, for discussion by regional actors on violence against children prevention. So this hub has been conceptualized by Impact and Innovation Development Center based on the learning from the technical assistance work that has been going on for some years. As an organization, we have seen a lot of implementation going on by different organizations, the smaller ones at community, the big ones that run big geographical scope. But at the end of the day, when we are trying to say, but where are the results? Where is evidence from the work that's going on? We can hardly trace it. We therefore imagine that probably this information is within your laptops, it's within your organizations, or it could be there, but within the communities, and it has not come out. And this is what brings us to the fact that this hub has been set up to serve as a central repository for evidence on what is working to prevent violence against children in East Africa. And the vision for this hub is to be the leading virtual information sharing and networking hub on violence against children work in the region. And the mission is to provide the most accessible information exchange platform on evidence-based approaches to ending violence against children, adaptation and innovation. We know that probably there's a lot of information exchange happening, but most of the exchange is happening physically. But this accessibility shall be made easier because this is going to be virtual. Anytime you feel like knowing the status of the evidence in the region, you just log on to the hub and you get the information. As the hub today will be unveiled, we bring it to the sector of child protection and violence against children for East Africa, with the understanding that there are gaps that this hub will be able to help or support in closing. And therefore, the rationale and the reason why it is a must-have for us as a region is that, one, it's going to provide opportunity for positive critique on the quality of evidence that we are generating in the region. As I earlier mentioned, we could be having this evidence in our minds, we know it. We could be having this evidence on our computers and organizations, but only us who know it, and we have not had anybody external provide input. So the hub presents the opportunity that your very good work will be available for public scrutiny and input in a positive way. The platform will also, the hub will also provide us a platform that will help us serve like a mirror to showcase the return on investments that have been made so far in prevention of violence against children. Many a times I have been to meetings where we talk about violence against children and most of our work is around response. But I know that in recent years, there has been substantial investment on prevention, and this is going to be a way of knowing, do we have evidence from what we have been doing around prevention work? And similarly, on tracking how well we are doing with implementing the Inspire 7 strategies on ending violence against children. As later you'll see when the hub is unveiled and you log in, the evidence will be organized around the 7 strategies of Inspire for a start. As we get more evidence, we could think about other ways of packaging it, but that is the initial plan of organizing the evidence. And our target for a start is, the primary target is implementers of back prevention programs. We need practice-based evidence. And we feel that this is the time that this evidence should inform policy, and it should also be used by researchers and academia. Under the hub, we have conceptualized that evidence to get on this hub has to go through some basic analysis in terms of criteria. We would like evidence from the smallest organization, whether working in one village, to the biggest agency, but we would like evidence that is very systematic. From the time of problem identification analysis, was there proper data and analysis of the drivers of the problem to show that indeed it's a problem? And when it was being designed, the program was being designed to intervene, was it relating to evidence-based models that have been used before? Or if it's a new model, is it designed properly to have clear sequencing and probably a manual for reference, so that at adaptation, anyone else who sees that it's working can be able to have a reference point. And at implementation, does it have an implementation framework? Is it well structured? And does it have learning questions that have been tracked through from the time of problem design to be able to inform the next level of adaptation and scale up. While we would like to make this as simple for everybody who is in VAC prevention work to contribute to, we have also provided for standards in terms of aligning whatever evidence we get to the global standards on evidence as defined under INSPIRE, starting with the lowest at expert opinion and professional opinions to the highest level of systematic reviews and randomized control trials. And our call to action as I end this presentation is, everybody on this call can play a part in this hub. Practitioners submit the evidence. The hub is here to support you on packaging it so that others can learn from it, but also your work gains visibility. For policymakers, communicate about this hub to the social service workforce for children and use it to strengthen your reports on the evidence of violence against children prevention in your country. Researchers, we request that your focus should now move to prevention and support practitioners in undertaking baselines, midlines, and endlines, and be able to share your evidence from research through this hub. For academia, you are doing a great job training the social service workforce for children. Make this site one of your referral points for students to visit the site to gain more knowledge on what is working in the region on violence against children. For the philanthropy, you make a lot of investments in the region and we are grateful. You could use this site to identify the best evidence-based solutions and use it to support your partners in making better investment decisions. I'd like to end here this presentation and thank you all for joining us. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Agnes, for giving us an overview of the VaCNets Hub. We are now in the moment of sharing some questions and reactions to the previous speakers. I would like to pose the first question to Dr. Lina Digolo, and it is a request to share your experience in using evidence to influence policy on preventing violence against children. Do you have any experience that you can share with us where you have used evidence to influence policy? Let's go ahead. Dr. Lina?
Yes, I was on mute. So yes, I was saying thank you so much, Samili, for that interesting question. It's one that I've commonly faced quite difficult, but also interesting approach, especially just because we know many times policymakers and practitioners are interested in evidence, but how we perceive evidence from the research aspect and policy and practitioner aspect might not be aligned. I look at this as, I'll just respond to your question as a researcher who's spent a lot of time working on the policy table, trying to get the research work taken up for the last decade. And one of the interesting lessons that I've learned is that it's very important to make sure that you have the right information, you have context-specific information and data, you have most current data, and you have it presented in a manner that's digestible and relevant to the policymakers and practitioners. I think this is the area that, as researchers, we have a lot to learn. Traditionally, we are used to conducting our research silently, from designing the question, implementing, and then at the end of the research, once we have the study results, we come with very complex concepts, mainly through publications, manuscripts, and present them in a manner that's quite difficult to digest to the policymakers and to the practitioners. What happens in such situations is that one, the information that is presented is not clear, and it's many times not relevant because at that point it did not address what the end users required. My first lesson is engagement of the end users from the start. As you're thinking about research questions, that's the time when you're bringing in the policymakers and the practitioners to tell you what's relevant from the ground. And then engaging them consistently throughout the research study and even program implementation, because remember, evidence here is both research evidence and the experience that we are getting to our program, so that the end users are inputting and acknowledging and knowing this information throughout the whole experience. So that has been one very key lesson learned for me. And you find that at the end of the study, or at the point within your program when you're ready to share results to inform policies, the policymakers have been engaged, they have buy-in, and they're actually at the forefront of accepting and utilizing this information that has been engaged. The second one is just making sure that we are generating evidence or adapting the evidence that exists globally and in other regions to make sense to our context. Policymakers, the first question they ask you is, will this work in Kenya? Has it been tried in Tanzania? Is it? And you'll find that when you don't have that information, then it's difficult to make a case for it. So that, I think, is the biggest message that I would want to send here. We need to start either generating our own evidence or adapting and testing some of the evidence that's out there to make sure that it's context specific, so that when we bring it to the policy table, it's acceptable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lina. Now we are going to go to Mrs. Stella Ayo Odong. There was a reaction from the audience. You are very much appreciated for highlighting the conflict between donor priorities and community priorities. Unfortunately, the workers of the donor agencies are so rigid to listen to the community. That is someone's opinion. And now the second one is, as we continue to listen and digest, especially the keynote address, one participant is concerned about the refugee children. Where are they? Do we have evidence on the situation of violence they face, especially the emotional violence? Refugee children always have to retell their stories that leads to their migration. Is this exposing them to secondary abuse? When they are supposed to assume their previous lives, lived cultures for new lifestyles, isn't this abuse? Is there a data for such information collected for the region? Mrs. Stella Ayo.
Thank you very much, moderator. Permission to speak with my camera off because I have very low bandwidth now, if that is granted, madam.
Yes, please, that is well.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the first one. It talks about the conflict between donor priorities and community priorities, and the fact that the donors are rigid on listening to communities. I think it's also about how we package, because donors would actually buy into what they feel works. So if the community leaders or whoever is designing this program is very, very consistent about the results they've seen, the desire to work on what they have planned, I think the donors would listen. It's about being confident about the intervention and sharing it. Yes, we do have, on the second question, we do have evidence on what has worked for children in humanitarian settings. We have been working at a global level with the humanitarian call for humanitarian action for humanitarian protection of children, and we have evidence on what has worked, especially using Inspire in humanitarian settings. So the children on the move, children in humanitarian contexts are not forgotten. The complexities have been discussed. So if you went to the website of the Global Partnership, you'll find information to that effect, or the Alliance for Humanitarian Action website and find information to that. So there's a lot that has been done, and a lot of work that continues to be done with the community, the humanitarian action community. So that is not to worry. There's already a lot of work that is being done with children on the move, children in humanitarian context. Over from me.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Stella. We will have one last one addressed to Dr. Samuel. A participant would like you to share some examples of promising practices to increase research utilization.
Thank you so much. I'll say first is we have a lot of research that probably for some reasons are not published, either in simple reports or published journals. So it makes so difficult to utilize this kind of information because people cannot get access to. Second, we have administrative data, data that are being generated from government programs and non-government organization programs. This is a huge potential database that are not properly analyzed, packaged in such a way that can inform either the same program or other programs. So this is one of the gray area that we need to work by probably build capacity of frontline workers who are documenting programs so that the information that they gather can be useful to inform what we need to do in the right way to really prevent violence. And the third one is about the research community. For the past 3 years, I've been working with a research community that do work on violence prevention here in Tanzania. And what I've learned that we need to do a lot more to capacitate researchers so that they are able to really align their research work to the government works and the government of non-government organization, the work of non-government organization. So the gap is, as I said earlier, you find researchers doing really true academic research that do not respond to the need on the ground. And we really need to close that gap, making sure that the researchers are really responding to the need on the ground and really generate the data that can be used. Some of the published data are not, cannot be simply utilized by the government for policy direction or for implementation. So we need to see how we can close that gap. But at a larger scale, VaC survey, for example, in Tanzania, was done 11 years ago, and we haven't had any other follow-up survey to understand what has happened since. It's because it is expensive to do some of this work, and actually requires some form of mechanism that can sustain generation of evidence. So if we rely on donor and we don't have inherent sustainability mechanism within the country, then it becomes so difficult to generate evidence periodically. So what works actually is the demographic health survey, which are done probably after every 5 years. but it does not have modules specific for violence against children. We have domestic violence, we have women empowerment, we have FGM, but not really violence against children per se. And I think this is one of the areas that we really need to have discussion around. What is it that we can do to make sure that we can collect violence against children data periodically in a more sustainable manner? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Samuel, and to the rest of the panelists who have either presented or answered questions. We have started the countdown to the launch of our VaCNets Virtual Hub. We will keep the questions there. We acknowledge that more questions came in. Thank you, Mr. Peter Kusemerera, for your question. Thank you very much, Sarah, for your question, but they will not be addressed now. We will take care that we get back to you after this launch. At this moment, and as it is on our agenda, we are now going to have statements from the African regional institutions. And these will lead us and channel us into the launch of our hub. And I'm getting so excited. So I would like to announce our first speaker, Mr. Fasil Mariam, the Executive Director of Children's Rights and Violence Prevention Fund. And for the information of the people who are on this event, these are the funders for the initial phase of this initiative. Mr. Fasil has more than 20 years experience working with disadvantaged children, youth, children, families, and vulnerable communities in East Africa. He's the founder and executive director of Children's Rights and Violence Prevention Fund. And before founding and starting to work with Children's Rights and Violence Prevention Fund, he worked with the Oak Foundation in East Africa as their regional grant-making program and manager. And he has worked in several countries and supported this child protection sector. He originates from Ethiopia, but I am sure most of his work time he's normally in Uganda. And he's a professional social worker. Mr. Fasil, you're welcome to make a statement as we launch the virtual hub on preventing violence against children.
Thank you, Samily. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed participants, and all protocol observed. I would like to take this opportunity as well to congratulate IIDC, especially Mr. Deogratis Yiga, Agnes Wasike, and the rest of the IIDC team for their vision in designing the VaCNets Virtual Hub. Really, congratulations. When the first time that IIDC approached CRVPF for the financial support, we really want to understand the vision and the strategic direction of the hub. I'm really glad now to fund this interesting regional platform with the aim of linking global and national actors to prevent violence against children and young people in our region. As we all know, the Global Violence Prevention Fund emerged to tackle the global threat on violence with scientific evidence on best practices in violence prevention. The Sustainable Development Goal SDGs in general described goals and specific targets that address many key risk factors for violence, such as poverty, gender inequality, but they also contain 6 specific targets as indicated by my friend Stella. The SDGs targets for violence prevention are important for several reasons. Most notably, for the first time, the world has agreed on targets for reducing violence. The significance of this development cannot be underestimated. The SDGs will spur social mobilization by helping global organizations and government work towards a common direction, create peer pressure, accelerate the development of practice communities around the technical aspect of achieving the targets, and assemble stakeholders networks. When it comes to our region, in the past, VAC actors, state and non-state actors working on VAC prevention and response in East Africa have received orientation, trainings on the global Inspire 7 strategies and are making efforts to implement intervention under each of the Inspire strategies within their localities. CRVP, following this kind of orientation, supported the Ministry of Gender, training their own focal persons, trained our community partners, organizing different training meetings in different localities, targeting different actors in the communities on the strategies. However, there is limited access to platform and sharing innovation and information on what is working to address violence against children and adults within East Africa. Most of the VAC information and knowledge management platform, which are used by stakeholders, are either localized at individual institutions or externally managed by regional global actors. I believe the establishment of the East Africa VaC Virtual Hub really assists to collect key information on timely manner and address the important gaps in the region. That's why CRVPF really provided the grant and support IIDC in the establishment of the hub, which is a key role that we have done in the past. We believe the hub will continue to be effective, serving the repository for global, regional, and emerging local evidence on what works to reduce VAC prevention work, while benchmarking from documented models in the Inspire 7 strategies. The hub connects global actors with VAC actors in East Africa to work towards a generation of local evidence on VAC. In this way, the hub will provide a safety net for indigenous knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, the major efforts to reduce worldwide level of violence against children and young people, including in our region, have to concentrate on countries where rates of violence are the highest and resources are the lowest. Emerging evidence is suggesting that different types of violence are co-occurring in selected geographies. Areas identified as highly violent are Latin America, Africa, and the Middle East. For instance, the United Nations Office of Drug and Crime, UNODC statistics indicated the homicide rates are significantly higher in the America with 16.3 per 100,000 population, and in Africa with 12.5 per 100,000 population, comparing to other regions in the world. It is important that the global violence prevention field to build capacity for evidence-based research and implementation in the low and middle income countries. North to South and South to South cooperation between leading institutions in the global violence prevention field and emerging actors are the major promising avenues to transfer knowledge and reduce violence significantly. The VaCNets Virtual Hub will play a significant role in facilitating these types of good connection. That is our hope, that it will continue facilitating this kind of strategic connection with global and national and regional actors. Finally, the VaCNets Virtual Hub with the IIDC leadership will be a model in our region and expand its work at national, regional, and global level with the participation of community organizations, local and international NGOs, and with the financial support of public, private, and government institutions. CRVP will encourage our regional partners to participate in the hub activities and share their VAC prevention work model, and also learn from new initiatives in the VaCNet. I will also say that this is an important step, time as well, for the VaCNet, the hub, to expand its reach, to diversify its funding sources in order to make a difference in the lives of children in our region. Thank you for the invitation and good luck with the important work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Fatsil. And you really clarify further the vision of this hub and the strong emphasis you have put on evidence-based research in East Africa and how the interconnection and the benchmarking with the global strategies is happening and why the hub is timely and very important at this time. So we are now going to have remarks from the African Child Policy, a representative from the African Child Policy Forum, Mr. Reta Gatichu, who is the Program Manager of Child Development and Protection. And he has over 15 years work experience in academia and development sector with various capacities. And he has been involved in designing, implementing, managing diverse programs focusing on child rights, protection, education, health, livelihoods, accessibility, and disability inclusive development. Mr. Reta, you're welcome to give your statement.
Okay, thank you, moderator. I cannot start my video because the host has stopped it. So if you can fix that technical glitch, that would be wonderful. But in the meantime, I would start my statement.
Okay, please.
Okay. Esteemed representatives of governments, and non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, child rights and protection advocates and experts, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. Let me first say, on behalf of the African Child Policy Forum, congratulations to Impact and Innovations Development Center on your successful completion and launch of this important online space for knowledge resources and networking on violence against children. I'm delighted to join you today as we celebrate the launch of this VaCNets Virtual Hub. Data and information influence policy, and therefore good quality information is indispensable to policy development and implementation. So too is good access to relevant evidence about successful interventions. However, we know too well the paucity of documented evidence of interventions that are rigorously tested and proven to work in a particular context, like those that are included in the INSPIRE package, as our colleague Stella, Madam Stella, earlier mentioned. While there are, a number of homegrown community-based programs that are initiated, conceived, and run by Africans, including by members of the communities they are designed to serve, information is not always readily available and accessible. So this virtual repository of knowledge resources we are launching today, therefore, is an important contribution to violence prevention efforts in the East African region. By collating the most up-to-date evidence of what works in violence prevention, the VaCNets Virtual Hub, I believe, will have significant contribution to improved knowledge and evidence on violence prevention efforts in the region. Besides being as an accessible source of evidence, the hub also stimulates cross-country and cross-regional learning and action on improved laws, policies, programs, and services, data, as well as resource allocations. And as speakers before me have said it well, the hub is also a space for networking and exchange of innovation among organizations and individuals within the child rights and protection community in Africa. As such, it will greatly benefit the VaC program implementers who do the actual prevention work on the ground, but also policymakers, researchers, and academicians, among others. The African Child Policy Forum has been working in building evidence and knowledge and advocating for change in fighting violence against children in Africa. Our efforts have focused on 4 key strategic actions that we continue to adhere to. First, we built evidence and knowledge on the scale and the nature of violence against children, including the most vulnerable children, to inform policy and practice. Second, we strive to enhance political leadership around violence against children with a view to make it at the top of the agenda. Third, we seek to mobilize different stakeholders to coalesce around the VaC agenda through common platform for learning and innovation. And finally, we promote homegrown solutions and best practices in addressing violence against children. So the VaCNets Virtual Hub will add significant value to our work, both as a source of evidence, but also as a space where some of our resources could easily be made available to users on the ground. So as I conclude my statement, I would like to say, given the critical importance of accessible and local evidence knowledge to our community, we wish to see this virtual hub progressively grow, both in scope and geographical reach. And you can count on our support as you promote and support local models and initiatives on the violence prevention in the East African region and even beyond. And thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, sir, and thank you for the promise of support to grow this platform and highlighting the interlinkages between what the African Child Policy Forum is doing and what how the Virtual Hub will contribute, especially being a source of evidence and making available resources, shared on different platforms. And I really appreciate one of your strategy of promoting homegrown solutions. This is about the Virtual Hub promoting homegrown solutions in East Africa. Yes, you are for Africa, we are for East Africa, and this is really very well aligned. And next we are going to have remarks from the World Health Organization, and we will have remarks from Mrs. Prudential Musabimyana, the passionate gender specialist with extensive professional experience in protecting children and preventing gender-based violence. She is currently the technical advisor and technical officer for preventing violence against children with the World Health Organization. Mrs. Musabimyana, may you please make your statement?
Thank you so much, moderator, for introducing me. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. It's really a great pleasure to be with you in this event on VaCNets Virtual Hub launch. As WHO World Health Organization aspires to the attainment by all people of the highest possible level of health. In this perspective, the 74 World Health Assembly held in 2021 adopted a resolution on ending violence against children through health system strengthening and multi-sectoral approaches. And this is in line with World Health Organization commitment to achievement of the global SDG 2030 targets, especially the target 16.1 that aspires to end abuse, exploitation, trafficking, and all forms of violence against children. Despite the evidence solution at hand, children everywhere around the world continue to face violence, abuse, and neglect. And between, as Stella stated out, between 500,000 million and 1.5 billion children worldwide endures some of violence annually. And in Africa, 50% of child population is estimated to have experienced or witnessed some form of violence, such as physical, sexual and emotional and other different forms of violence. The situation is very and even worse in conflict situation where children experience several forms of human rights violation, specifically sexual and gender-based violence such as rape, sexual slavery, and sexual mutilation. And children with disabilities, those in armed conflict or humanitarian crisis settings, and those engaged in child labor or living or working on the street are at higher risk of violence. It is most important to note that around the world, 168 million children are engaged in child labor, while 100 million live or work on the street. Violence against children happen in almost all settings, at home, at school, at the community level. As we are aware, as our colleague Stella stated out, violence is not inherent part of the human condition. It can be predicted and can be prevented. In recent decades, data-driven and evidence-based approaches have produced knowledge and strategies that can prevent violence. And preventing and responding to violence against children requires that efforts systematically address risk and protective factors at all four interrelated levels of risk that are individual, relationship, community, and at society level in general. To achieve this, in collaboration with partners, the World Health Organization developed the INSPIRE technical package, which presents 7 evidence-based strategies to prevent and respond to violence against children. And INSPIRE sets for 7 strategies that are implementation and enforcement of laws, norms and values, safe environment, parent and caregiver support, income and economic strengthening, response and support services, and education and life skills. The World Health Organization at African Regional Office is supporting countries to our region to draw upon the evidence solution presented in these INSPIRE strategies to enhance the effectiveness of violence against children prevention and service programming. It is very important to address the extent to which existing support for prevention of violence against children programming is consistent with this INSPIRE evidence-based solution. The World Health Organization Global Center Support on Preventing Violence Against Children in 2020 developed through consultation with member states, measured the extent to which governments around the world are taking this evidence-based action to achieve the SDGs target on ending violence against children, and really provided a baseline against which government can monitor their progress. It focused on interpersonal violence, which account for most acts of violence against children, and include child maltreatment, bullying, and other type of youth violence, and intimate partner violence. The African Regional Report on Preventing Violence Against Children revealed that many countries have already started implementing plans and policies and laws required to support programs aimed at preventing violence against children and respond efforts that are consistent with INSPIRE evidence-based solution. However, decision makers in every country do acknowledge that they need to scale up their efforts. We would like to congratulate Impact Innovation Development Center for this initiative of VaCNets Virtual Hub, as this will greatly contribute to achieving the goal shared by World Health Organization and all other partners working toward ending violence against children through evidence-based approaches. This virtual hub will allow further sharing of the best practices from region and support stakeholders in design and implementation of regional specific effective solutions. And I'm happy that I'm sorry for the disturbance. And I'm happy that to hear from Agnes that this VaCNets Virtual Hub will be organized in a way that implementation inspired strategy will be documented. To conclude, as the WHO commitment, the organization will continue to strengthen collaboration with countries and partners in implementing evidence-based prevention and response strategies, and to promote the development and use of innovative solutions to end violence against children. Thank you so much. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Musabyimana, for this statement. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to acknowledge and admit that we are not very good on time. We kindly request you to allow us extend this meeting by up to 10 minutes, the highest, but we'll be able to perhaps conclude in 5 minutes past the hour we had planned to stop the meeting. Next, I would like to invite Mrs. Theopista Kanzaire from the African Union Commission to give a statement. And after that statement, we will be now ready to launch the hub. Mrs. Kanzaire is the Senior Child Rights Specialist at the African Union Commission. She's a United Nations practice professional with 20 years experience and presently working with the African Union Commission. And we are happy to have remarks from you. You're welcome, Mrs. Theopista.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you for the introduction. Executive Director of Impact and Innovation Development Center, IIDC, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues from African Union Commission, all protocols observed. It is a great honor and I am delighted to be here today at the launching of VaCNets Virtual Hub organized by IIDC, which aims at providing a safe online space and will serve as a central repository as it was presented, in networking and emerging evidence. And in that way, we believe that it will contribute strongly to prevent online violence against children in East Africa and other regions will learn from it. On the outset, I take this opportunity to thank IIDC to have organized this event and allowed African Union Commission to be part of it. I also appreciate all partners who have spoken before me, representatives of government from the region of East Africa and other speakers who have provided their statements before me, and those who are collaborating with IIDC in this important sector of child protection to fight violence against children in the realization, respect, and fulfillment of children's rights. African Union Commission is guided by its Agenda 2063 in Aspiration 3, an Africa of good governance, democracy, respect for human rights, justice, and the rule of law, and Aspiration 6, an Africa whose development is people-driven, relying on the potential of African people, especially its women, and youth and caring for children. African Union is as well guided by legal instruments such as the African Children Charter on the rights and welfare of the child, the Maputo Protocol, the Protocol on the rights of women in Africa, and also the Agenda 2040 and the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development Goals, and has developed a continental strategy and action plan for 5 years to ensure the well-being and safety of children from all forms of exploitation and abuse, including online children sexual exploitation in Africa. The online children sexual exploitation strategy and action plan aim to generate evidence to guide advocacy and programmatic response on OXE, increase continental awareness, political support and investment in OXE, strengthen institutional frameworks and monitoring and accountability mechanisms on OXE at continental, regional, and country levels, to provide practical continental guidelines and technical assistance to catalyze policy, programmatic, and advocacy actions. In operationalizing the online children sexual exploitation against children in Africa, the strategy, the African Union Commission will mutually reinforce a set of activities to galvanize member states, key stakeholders, and partners to accelerate actions in addressing online child sexual exploitation and abuse, including prevention, protection, and prosecution. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, violence against children in all its forms is a serious violation of human rights. And it is time to act in Africa and all over the world to fight it. At this occasion of launching of VaCNets by IIDC, African Union commend and congratulate IIDC and commend efforts and the joining investments through partnerships in fighting violence against children in all its forms, including online children sexual exploitation and abuse. This kind of initiative informs and influences child-friendly laws, policies, and practices, empowering children and their parents to understand and exercise their rights, keeping government accountable. Also, this will be a platform for learning and scale-up opportunities, as it has been also mentioned before. African Union Commission will continue to work with its partners to fight violence against children, including OXE, in efforts to address the issues of violence against children at continental, regional, and national levels. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very, very much. And now we invite our chief guests to unveil the hub and launch the hub. And this is none other than Mr. Lefoko K. Samang, the Senior Social Welfare Officer from the African Union.
Thank you so much, moderator, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me recognize the member states that are actually the ones that are part of this hub, the representative from Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, even though the government of Tanzania is absent. But thank you so much. And let me bring greetings from the Director of Social Development, Sports and Culture under the Department of Health, Humanitarian Affairs and Social Development, who was supposed to be the one speaking today, launching this hub. And she's has traveled and dealing with issues of children, and especially in the area of female genital mutilation. And it is exactly what we are dealing with today. And let me thank the organizers and IIDC for this timely event, and also this effort of ensuring that, one, there is information, and this information has to be collated somewhere and saved and uploaded for people to have access. But I would like to thank, recognize first of all, everyone who has spoken before me, and they've made my work easier, and due to time, definitely I will make sure that I will just go directly to the main reason for being here. But before doing that, of course, I will make a few remarks. And to thank my sister who has just spoken, Theopista, and she has made it easier for me. And let me just say that, what is the use? Let me just ask this question. What is the use of having information when it is not accessible? Maybe the next one who may be asking, what is the use of having accessible information and we do not use it to come up with solutions, to come up with strategies, to come up with interventions that will deal with the issue of children, especially violence against children in Africa. Even though this is a regional effort, on the African Union and the African Union Commission at this instance is hoping that it will be able to be spread across the continent, and it will be able to cover all the regions, and so that we can have access to information as a click of a button. Not only that, that will be able to be linked to other similar platforms, so that it will be easier for some of us who really struggle with technology, and so that we can be able to access information without having to struggle, especially information that has been homegrown here in this continent and which has been proved through practice, and there's evidence towards that. However, let me just appeal to all of us here that this homegrown innovation, which is a very good example, need all of us, especially the CSOs, governments, and other stakeholders, and those partners who are part of this important initiative, that we should support this by being part of the whole discussion, by being part of the whole everything that is taking place, and also sharing information, discussions, and exchange of informations and views across the continent and globally. And also just to request, of course, the researchers that now we have got this platform where we can be able to share this information, and those who produce information through practice, whether you are government and all, and everyone else, that we should be able to use this platform, and which is our pride here in this continent. And not only that, like I am saying, that the other platforms, so that we can be able to work together and ensure that there are platforms that are going to cover the whole continent and the whole regions, the other regions. And policymakers, please, as you develop policies, let us make use of this hub so that we can be able to harness the information that is there, the evidence that is provided, and the data that is would have been uploaded, to ensure that our policies speak to the current issues, and they are they are updated, and they really speak to what we are dealing with, and they bring solutions, and they bring solutions that can have an impact in the area of children. And also to ask the donors to say that these initiatives need to be supported. Of course, they need money, they need personnel, they need capital, they need human capital to be able to run. And what an opportunity that we can be able to share information that has been developed, generated in this continent. And let me say that what I would definitely like to see in this hub is to cover all children. I happen to be the focal person for disability in the African Union Commission, and it is my plea with everyone here who is listening and who is going to be part of this great initiative, that let us also ensure that issues that pertains to children with disability, and in particular, children with albinism who are being mutilated, who are being abused across this continent, and their cry has not yet been heard by everyone who has to hear their cry. And I'm appealing to you that as you deal with children, don't just deal with children, also deal with those children who are left behind, those who are not a part of our debate and our discussion dialogue. And I'm talking about these children with albinism. And I'm appealing to you that we need to stop this harmful practice of thinking that persons and special children with albinism, they bring good luck if you use their parts, and if you mutilate them, and if you sell their parts. And this hub should be having data on that and good practices and solutions on how to stop this heinous crime against humanity, and especially in this continent. So it is something that we need to look at, that we have got those children maybe from indigenous groups, or those children from who are hidden because of whatever the issues are. Let them come out, and their stories and the data about them and solutions about them, let it come out and be in part of this hub, and information be part of this hub. Therefore, having said this, and hoping that all of us were of one mind, let me, on behalf of the African Union Commission and the Department of Health, Humanitarian Affairs and Social Development, declare this hub launched, and that this is the hub that is going to add value to the Africa we want. The Africa by 2063, when we get there, or the generations that are to come, they will get there. They will say, yes, this hub contributed to the Africa we want, and our African by Africans in Africa. And of course, supported by the partners, I'm not leaving you out, and by Africans who are committed to children, that our children will live in an era, a society, an environment that is safe, that it takes care of them, and that honors their rights and recognize their rights. This is, and thank you so much, and let this hub now be what it is, and it is, as I've said, launched. Thank you.
Welcome to the VaCNets Virtual Hub. This is a safe online space established by IIDC to serve as a central repository and a networking platform on promising practices and emerging evidence on violence against children, VaC prevention in East Africa, aiming to be the leading virtual information sharing and networking hub on violence against children prevention in East Africa. Yes. As soon as you open the site, you will be ushered to the sidebar, which helps you navigate the site quickly by giving you an overview of the entire hub. We shall compile and maintain an inventory of hub subscribers and contributors to VaC content under the hub users section. You will find a registration form which you will fill to register as a stable to free subscription. Evidence that has been assessed, verified, and approved for upload will be published under the evidence section. There is an evidence solicitation tool which guides you on how to structure your evidence for easy confirmation before submission to VaCNets. All evidence submitted is open to public scrutiny and positive criticism. Readers are encouraged to submit their views in the comments section. We also welcome content from other like-minded organizations from already profiled evidence on VaC prevention in East Africa for cross-share. Email VaCNets Virtual Hub at iidcug.org.
Thank you very much. It is launched, it is live, and it is working, and we are ready to receive evidence, comments, feedback. And now I invite our Executive Director from Impact and Innovations Development Center to give us the closing remarks and officially close the launch.
Thank you very much, Samali. Our chief guests from the African Union Commission, our key speaker, Madam Stella Ayo, Professor Paul Bukuluchi, the chairperson of the VaCNets Hub, all our guests and participants. On behalf of IIDC, I wish to thank you very, very much for bearing with us, for joining us today as we launch this milestone in the journey to prevent violence against children and to redress it. As thought leaders, as vision bearers for this hub, here at IIDC today is a day where our sentiment is one of validation. We feel from all the remarks that we've received from the speeches, we feel that our vision is validated by all of you, that what we are trying to do is necessary. We also feel inspired by the very positive and insightful contributions from all the speakers to move forward in this journey of facilitating the shift from ad hoc programming and response to violence against children to a more evidence-based approach. And lastly, we feel very reassured for all the support that you have promised to ensure that this hub grows and becomes a force for better in our shared struggle to prevent violence against children. For all this, I wish to thank all of you, but in a special way, to thank our governments, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, who have all journeyed with us and who have been with us today. The government of Tanzania was not able to be here, but has been fully with us in this journey and is committed to supporting this hub. We also wish to thank our partners, especially the African Union, Commission, WHO, the Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children, ACPF, for partnering with us in launching this innovative new product on the landscape. And thank you for the commitments and the insights that you have shared through the various representatives. I wish to thank our funding partner, CRVPF, Fasil and team. Thank you very much for making this vision a reality for your financial and also technical support. I wish to thank our reference group members, led by Professor Paul Bukuluchi, a group of eminent practitioners and academics who are behind this hub, technically overseeing and guiding its operation. We continue to count on your continued support in taking this further. I also wish to thank my technical team, Samali, Agnes, the IT people, the comms people, and the entire team that has made this launch possible and seamless. Thank you very much. I wish to thank and call upon our partners in evidence and knowledge generation out there, that we count on you to generate the products that we shall share. And we are sure that you will respond positively. We already are grateful to those that have started this journey. We also are grateful to our partners in the Prevention Collaborative who have shared kindly the resources that are already uploaded there, and the Evaluation Fund. To all of you, our dear friends, colleagues, and partners in this field, we wish you fruitful engagement with the hub. We hope that you will add value to our collective efforts to end violence, and we commit ourselves to do the best we can to make this hub productive, accessible,
and sustainable. I thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. And I thank everyone and the speakers. I can't say more, but to thank everyone who has attended this event and for all the commitments that has been made. And we wish everyone a good day as we continue to work on issues regarding prevention of violence against children. It is now the end of this meeting, and I wish everyone a good day further. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.